We are Derrick Parker, hip hop cop.
Hey, what's up?
Fetty, here we are. Another year, another indictment. What can you tell me, Fetty Wap?
It's like every time I come with you, man, there's always something new about another rap star, somebody being arrested and charged with crimes. Well, let's talk about Fetty Wap today, right? So, Fetty Wap got arrested by the government, right? Spending from a case that stemmed out of Long Island through the West Coast, from LA and New Jersey. Apparently he was involved with a bunch of individuals that were selling drugs, fentanyl, one being one of them, heroin. And the ring operated out of 3 different jurisdictions, which is, I said, New Jersey, LA, and Long Island. Now, apparently they were getting the drugs sent from Los Angeles, or from the West Coast, they say, to New York and New Jersey. And the individuals here were distributing them in their communities, or selling them. And there were also firearms involved as well. So the feds got involved because they had an ongoing case with Fetty Wap. They already picked up most of the individuals that they wanted in this case, one being a correction officer, and they saved the last for Fetty Wap. Now, a lot of people were upset because they got him at the Rolling Loud concert, and why could they have to give him there? That was to embarrass him. But the feds probably did that to make a statement, and they wanted to let people know that, you know, whether you're a rapper, whether you're a star, whoever you are, you can't escape the long hand of the law, as they always say. So that was a setup to arrest him in front of his fans, to show people that they can't get away with this kind of stuff. And I think it was also planned that because Fetty was going to be here in New York City, that it was better, because if he was in Jersey or out somewhere else, he would be in another jurisdiction, and then you'd have to think about extradition laws, where you'd have to arrest him and either bring him in front of a judge and then extradite him from one city to another. So it was probably easier to get him here in Queens, where they got him. Mm-hmm. Now, he got out on bond, from what I know, a $500,000 bond, which is somewhat unusual in the federal government cases. But I don't think there was any violence in their case, from what I read and from what I know from talking to people. That there wasn't much violence. I think it was more or less the firearms and the sale of firearms and possession, and then the drugs itself. You know, so that was the big deal. But because a lot of these people go back to what I say before, which you and I talked about earlier this year, a lot of people feel that these rap artists make all this money, and they don't live the lifestyles that they portray on TV. I mean, you see them in boats and private jets, and they have a sneaker line, and they have this, they have that. A lot of these guys don't have that. So the easiest way, or the quickest way to make money sometimes, is to resort to drugs. And that's where most people make their money. I'm not just saying just rap artists, but other people. They make their money by doing this. But it's the wrong thing to do, because eventually you're going to get caught, because sooner or later someone's going to give you up, or you're going to be involved in some kind of case that's going to come across somebody's desk, or there'll be phone wiretaps, things like that. And you never know who you're going to catch. And it's like casting a big net sometimes, and you got to see what fish bite. You know, and that's sometimes that's how it happens.
Right. Now, let me ask you. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go and get into. We don't have to get into the specifics of how, it's in this case, of how drugs were transported from the West Coast to here. But tell me, in general, in the cases you've seen, how is drugs move from the West Coast to here? Well, especially in this day and age. Well,
you're not gonna. I think in that particular case, the Postal Service was involved, and that's how mainly they were able to do that case. I think the Postal Service got involved, and once the Postal Service got involved, I think it was that was the way of their methodology of transporting the drugs, because you can't bring it in the airport, you can't go on the planes because they search you. Mm-hmm. You're not going to bring it by train, and you can't really drive cross country like that. Right. From California to New York. It would take a long time. So the best way to do it was to probably package it and then go through the Postal Service. But I think in this particular case, the Postal Service was involved. The postal inspectors were involved in this investigation with the transportation of drugs from the West Coast to the East Coast.
how would they be involved? Like how's that process? Like,
well, I'm sure they package the drugs, and they probably put them in certain boxes or cartons where they.
With them being aware of it.
Well, with the Postal Service, the way they did it probably is that they probably did it in a way where they disguised it somehow, and got it through. They got it through the Postal Service. Oh, they might have had somebody on the inside too, that was able to take that stuff and get it through customs or whatever, or pass inspection to go through so that they could get it here on the East Coast. So they definitely, with the amount of money that they were making, they definitely had to have connections and doing what they did.
Now, so explain the jurisdiction thing about Fetty Wap. Fetty Wap is a resident of New Jersey, but doesn't the feds have a jurisdiction like over the government? They can do whatever they want.
Well, the government can arrest you somewhere else, but still, you still have local and state laws. You can't go too many places without doing certain things. For example, if the case is in New Jersey, if the person lives in New Jersey, you're not going to go to New Jersey and arrest them, because now, remember, the Eastern District is the one that has this case, and the Eastern District governs this case from Queens, Brooklyn, and Long Island.
Right.
They have that, and they have that jurisdiction. So the case stemmed out of there. So I would assume that taking him in Queens would have been better, because they would have grabbed him up, and it would have been in the confines of the Eastern District instead of going to another district like the Bergen County District, which is in New Jersey, or going into the West Coast, because you're going into another district of federal law.
Right. Now, this isn't the first time where we see cops kind of like stop rappers that Rolling Loud. Rolling Loud is infamous for its stopping rap, especially that event, stopping rappers and checking in them or arresting them, or or
well, Rolling Loud. Listen, Rolling Loud.
They call it the Feds Festival.
Well, Rolling Loud's a big concept thing. It's a big deal. I think last year you had several rappers that were on the bill to perform, and the police department shut them down. They wouldn't let them perform. Why? Because they had information that these rappers had violent histories or either violent histories or tendencies, or had problems with other people that could endanger the spectators or endanger the show, or cause the police problems where they had to provide greater police presence at these venues. So therefore, they said, look, we're not going to allow these people to perform. And I think they put the screws to the promoters. If they did, they were going to shut the show down. So, but Rolling Loud is a big thing where a lot of rappers do perform. So there's a high alert when they come to certain cities and perform, because in the past, things have happened with rap artists and big concerts. Now, not to go off the subject about talking about Rolling Loud, but we just know about Astroworld out in Texas, Houston,
right.
Texas, with Travis Scott. And I mean, this wasn't an event where I don't think any violence was planned. It was more where the crowd got out of control, and then maybe there was overcrowding. And as a result of it, 8 people died so far that I know, and over 200 people were injured. I mean, the lawsuits are like piling up like crazy. But it just shows you, again, at these events, when these rap artists are here, it's not that the rap artists are bad. It's the following of the fans sometimes, and it's sometimes the crowd of people that come along to these events that do drugs, because there were indications that people were getting pricked with needles at the concert. One security guard supposedly went unconscious. So there's a lot of things that go on at these concerts that the public don't really know, and they don't foresee the problems that law enforcement have with some of these events that take place. Now, a lot of people say, oh, it's the police department going against the rappers, they don't like rap artists. Well, it's not really that. It's just that sometimes when you have these events, or when you have rappers involved in certain things, the police begin to become involved. Right. Now the feds come involved, because sometimes it's on a bigger level, and it's not statewide, it's federal-wide. So now the feds get involved, like in the Fetty Wap situation. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's been local things happening where the police got involved at other events, where things happen with rap artists. But it just goes to show you that it's unfortunate, but things do happen, and it has to be a lot of precautions and things taken in place before these events take place in certain cities. You have to plan, and you have to go out and to see what or how you're going to handle these events, especially when these artists come to your city.
Right. Now, Fetty Wap is currently on a $500,000 bail. I do understand from looking at the indictment, he's charged with drugs, and usually, if you're charges when you with the feds, if you're charged with anything violent, guns or anything, you're not. They're not going to give you any.
No, if you're charged with violent crimes, they're not going to let you out.
Right.
But still, even in this case, especially the magnitude of it and how big it was, the amount of drugs and the guns that were seized, I'm surprised too that the feds did allow him to have a $500,000 bond, $500,000 bond. So I was kind of surprised about that myself. But things do happen, and listen, he came up with the collateral to put up the poster bond, so he had some money from somewhere.
Now, okay, let's talk hypothetically. Because as soon as he bailed out, people automatically thought, okay, Fetty must be cooperating. Is he snitching under the table? Is that, let's say he was, right? Hypothetically. I don't want to put that jacket on him, but let's say he was. Would the feds play ball with him and let him out on bail? Or is that like only like a judge's?
It really comes down to the assistant of the prosecutor and his boss or her boss. If they make a recommendation to the judge to allow it, because they have to put it in writing.
Oh, right.
For that to happen, you can't just go and ask. You have to tell the judge why it's going to be granted, and the magistrate has to grant it. Now, doesn't mean that he's snitching, it just means he's out on bond. Now, we know this from the past by the Tekashi 6ix9ine case, that when the feds do get you in a certain situation, in some cases, I'm not going to say all, but you do have this pressure put on you to cooperate. And in this case, too, Fetty may have to cooperate as well. Now, am I going to sit here and tell you that he's going to cooperate? He may not. He may look at a lot of jail time, or he might try to get a good lawyer to represent him, but the feds have really a tight case. And I'm sure the people that are with him are from a lesser means, and they will cooperate with the feds, and they will tell of his involvement and everybody else's involvement. One of the guys involved was a correction officer, so I'm sure that he's going to turn and he's going to talk. And then you have the other individuals. You know, they're looking at a lot of time, and a lot of people are not built. Like the days when I was out in the street, you had guys that were built to go to jail for 10, 15, 20 years. They didn't care. In today's times, no. A lot of people don't want to do that time. They talk, they snitch. And it's not even about the snitching someone, it's the position that you get put in, that you have no choice but to cooperate. Or you're looking at a lot of time. And the way things are going right now in this world, you having kids or growing up, you don't want to lose your freedom. Freedom is a big thing today. Losing your freedom is something that a lot of people can't afford to lose.
I know correctional officers in New York are infamous for being corrupt and being involved in a lot of shady shit. So how does a correctional, what's involvement? How did it play out?
Well, the correctional officer we don't know the whole substance of the case, but he's charged with the conspiracy and everything else as far as the case is concerned. So I have to assume that he was involved with somehow maybe protection, maybe being with them because he was a hired gun. And then maybe helping them transport drugs and securing them. Because again, he was a law enforcement officer where he had certain rights or certain passages that he could go through as a regular person wouldn't be able to get things done. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. There are some bad law enforcement officers out here in all agencies, whether it's police or corrections or whatever. But, now he lost his job and it's embarrassing. He's looking at a lot of time as well. So a lot of these individuals, believe me, they're going to all cooperate with the federal government on this case.